Reactions, including skin reactions, can occur. Get help right away for face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, wheezing, or trouble breathing. Tell your doctor of new or worsening eye problems like eye pain or vision changes, skin symptoms, joint aches and pain, or a parasitic infection. Don't change or stop other treatments.
Trader days to the Industrial Revolution era to modern times, this city has grown and changed with all of them. And change is inevitable. And that brings us to today, where we are now living in a time when St. Paul is on the cusp of needing to find its future once again in this year, 2025. Welcome to downtown St. Paul. We're here in beautiful, the St. Paul Hotel, an iconic element of downtown St. Paul. It's been here for a long, long time. Everybody knows where it is. And so we have gathered here, and we've brought together an interesting and dynamic group of people ranging all types of professions and all with a vested interest in downtown St. Paul's future. And it's our hope that we're going to pose some of the challenges and some of the benefits that St. Paul has to offer and what faces it in the years to come in an open discussion today. We're calling it a roundtable discussion, and we want to keep it a discussion. So welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. I know you all have very busy schedules, so I appreciate you being here. I know the viewers do as well. We will have this on linear television as well as streaming live, so it will be seen by a lot of people. One of the things that all of you know, and I've been in and out of the city now for 35 years, 5 daughters. They're all in their 30s now, so we've been in and out of this city for various events throughout the years. And I've seen it change as well as all of you have as well, and it's often described as being a sleepy town. I mean, others might disagree with that at times, because it can be raucous at times. But it does have a reputation for being slow. So its future is a little in flux, and the Downtown Alliance and the city put together a plan, investment strategy plan for the city of St. Paul. It came out about a year ago. It's very detailed. It talks about the long-range issues the city faces. It talks a little bit about the history and the things that it's faced in the past and how we got to where we are today. So much of what we'll talk about today is the elements of that strategy plan. And I'm asking all of you to kind of weigh in on that as you see them. We will have different parts of that plan, the priorities, the strategies, and things like that that you can weigh in on. But one of the things that I found in the plan that I found interesting, there was a quote in there, and I'm going to read it to all of you and our viewers. It sort of kicks off the discussion and sets the table for how important this discussion is today and how important how the city moves forward is to everybody who loves this city. It says the city is at a critical juncture. Challenges are daunting, and they require bold action. I think that's safe to say that we all probably agree with that. There are certainly challenges. And it has a perception problem among people out there who don't know the city well or who haven't been in the city in a while or who have frequented it recently and said it's not the same. I want each of you, and we'll do it briefly, just in a few words, give me your perception of the city as it relates to the challenges that the city has today. And Tom, I'll start with you.
Okay, I think part of the nature is we get compared to Minneapolis a lot. When you say it's sleepy, Minneapolis bills itself as this place where 24/7 they're going nonstop. We're not like that in St. Paul. It's a government town, a lot of nonprofits based here. So I think our approach, I wouldn't call it slow, I'd call it deliberate, and I think it's a function of what we are, which is we have a lot of government.
You recognize the challenges?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's it's a perception issue.
I believe we definitely have challenges, but on the other side, I've had probably 3 occasions this year when everything is clicking together perfectly in the city. So whether we have a Wild game or a concert over at the Grand Casino Arena, our hotel is full with occupancy, the Ordway's going, and then the other night, I think it was sometime this summer, we also had a game down at CHS Field. And leaving the concert, I thought I was in New York. There were so many people on the street. Rice Park was full of people, and we see that often, and we're seeing it more and more often. So it gives me optimism for the city.
I think there's a true element in that, and that's part of what the strategy plan lays out. Is that St. Paul is a vibrant city when there's an event. People come into the city, they have a good time, and then they go, but they don't necessarily utilize the city to just be. People don't want to just be in the city. And I think that's part of what we'll talk about, and it's part of one of the issues that the city has to face. Mayor, your perceptions of the city as it faces these challenges?
I think what you just said is a really important understanding, and it's something that our Downtown Alliance has helped us to realize. We use the word sometimes stickiness. People love to come in for a wild game, and people love to come in for the Yacht Club Music Festival, and people love to come in for Music on Mears, and for a concert, or for we'll have a number of folks downtown for the World Juniors Hockey Championships. And when you're there, downtown feels anything but slow. The question is like stickiness. How do we get people to come down and have dinner ahead of time? How to get folks to come down and have lunch ahead of time? How to get folks to stay for a beer after the fact? And a lot of that has been exacerbated by, and strangely, we probably are as good today as we ever have been at getting those big events like that and like having evening stuff. But the way the pandemic shifted all of our work impacts has, I think, isolated something that's always been a challenge, and that's that we have so little housing downtown. And that's something that's at the core of our strategy.
You raise a good point, and that's true, that this strategy report found that Grand Casino Arena, formerly XL Energy Center, has returned to its pre-pandemic volume of visitors, and that is one of the highlights and one of the bright spots in this report, and one of the things that will be utilized to move forward. Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we have some great moments in downtown, but we have some times when the moments aren't as good. And as we pointed out in the strategy, we need more residents, more workers, and more visitors coming to all parts of downtown. And what I like is our strategy addresses all those. It has a lot of investments in those priorities. And importantly in St. Paul, one of the things I really appreciate is exactly what's happening here. This is a place where people from various backgrounds, professions, different sectors that they represent, we come to the table together and we get after it. And I see an energy right now in getting after the real challenges we have, for certain, but it's taking advantage of the great opportunities that we have in front of us as well.
Joe, you had a deep hand in putting this together, so you know this report intimately. Is what's being said here relevant, and does it reflect what you found?
100%. I mean, I think when we think about the long-held reputation of being the sleepier of the two towns, a lot of folks are thinking about the central business district, the core of downtown. They're not thinking about Rice Park on an event night or farmers market on the weekends or around CHS Field. They're thinking about those core blocks, maybe 4 or 6 blocks in the middle of downtown, where it's exclusively office buildings. We have exclusively office uses. And for years, I mean, I'm really proud of the work that we did with, bringing in all the entertainment and visitor destinations. But for years, we'd wring our hands and say people aren't around, after 6. And it's like, well, we built it that way. There's no reason for anybody to be in those office buildings. There's no residents around. There's no visitor destinations in the core. And so one of the things that's been said as key is we have to have that mix of users, but we have to have them throughout the downtown. And so what's happened right now with the core is exclusively office use. Well, office use falls. Even if everybody's coming in 3 days a week, that's still a couple days where folks aren't in, and that creates a challenge because we didn't create that mix. So this downtown investment strategy, I'm really passionate about. I'm a big believer in it. I think this notion of having a mix of users is really what's key to make it feel vibrant, not just at noon, right? But early in the morning, folks are going out for a run, walking the dog, doing those kinds of things. Same with at night. Like, that matters, and having that mix of users is the key.
Something I said early on, and that is to get people to want to be in the city more than just for an event, and that's a big part of the strategy in this plan moving forward. I should mention to our viewers, Senator Pappas was supposed to be there, wasn't able to make it, so that's why we're not going to hear from Senator Pappas during this discussion. So we will move now to the City Council, and I just wonder, as I read through this, and there was a lot in that report, so I'm going to direct it to the chamber and the council. One of the things that was very clear to me was that St. Paul is set up well for various points of interest, but they're not set up well to have them be a pleasant walk or a pleasant get to, right? That seems to be a challenge. Is that a perception issue for you?
100% it's important, and I don't think it's just perception. I think it's partly reality. I mean, first of all, just to continue the pushback on the word sleepy and slow, when people visit downtown St. Paul, what I hear them say is charming, vibrant, historic, and walkable, because we have a really small downtown. You can actually get to all of the parts of our downtown.
The landmass, yeah.
Right, so it's 1 mile square. So you can walk all around and see all the highlights of downtown within an afternoon, within an hour. But the key is to make you want to take that walk. And we've talked about that often, where that donut hole that Joe was describing, we need to be able to get people to come to the arena, to come to Rice Park, and then look down the street and see something that they want to come to next. And I think the two key words that I would pull out of the report are bold and action, and I hope that we get back to talking about that.
We will. Matt, the Wild, obviously a big draw in this city, a year in and year out. And as I said before, Grand Casino Arena is now back to pre-pandemic visitors. That's good.
Yes,
That's
it
something
is.
to build off of. But I want to ask you, what do people say who come to St. Paul for a Wild game and then zip out of town? What is their concern?
Yeah, I think there probably is more that we can do to entice folks to stay downtown before and after games. These days, getting to downtown from lots of places is a challenge. So getting here super early, but people are working during the day and all that kind of thing, that's understandable. But staying later at night, I think that there's a lot we have to offer. And I think part of our plan that we've all been talking about with this investment strategy is to create a more live, work, play environment downtown. I think we're in the middle of a very exciting, transformative time for St. Paul, just like a lot of cities. What we're going through is not dissimilar from a lot of major cities, but we've got a plan, and we have been discussing it for a time. We're now starting to act on it. And this notion of connecting the various parts of downtown is an important part of that plan, but a big part of it is getting residential to the point where we have people living here, working here, playing here, and we have a lot to offer in that regard.
Chris Sherman, Sherman Associates President, your company has invested a lot of energy into this town, a lot of time, a lot of resources, and a commitment to stay in downtown St. Paul, unlike, let's say, Madison Equities, for example. And we'll talk about them in great detail, at least what impact that's had on St. Paul as we move through this. But what inspired you to keep your feet here?
A few things. I mean, the recipe, being a historic town, we see the ability for what occurred the last 16 years was a doubling of the downtown population. Going back to 2008 to today, it went from about 4,000 to 8,000. Looking outward, the historic nature of downtown provides an ability during this period that we're in the real estate cycle to leverage private investment alongside federal historic credits to really drive the city forward in a unique way. Our building next door, Landmark Tower, is one of the newer historic buildings built just 42 years ago. St. Paul has an atypical amount of qualified historic buildings that are going to be very good fits for conversions to housing. So as we look at the next phase of downtown St. Paul and look at some of the successes of Lower Town St. Paul, the North Loop, Minneapolis, and other neighborhoods, the downtown core is really ripe for taking this big step forward to becoming a neighborhood where people live, work, play, and stay. And that's what gets us really leaning in to the city in a more significant way as we look forward the next 10 years.
All right, B, I'm going to end with you for this segment, but the Chamber has its challenges. I'd love to have your perception of the city as it sits right now in relation to what lies ahead.
Well, I'm impassioned with the opportunity. And when I think about what's unique, Matt talks about we're not that dissimilar. I would say one of the areas in which we're quite unique is everyone here at the table. The word I would use is accessible. The mayor's accessible to the business community, to the partners at the table, to the residents, and the fact that this group comes together, aligned with a mission and a plan, I find that extraordinary, and that gives us a lot of hope.
All right, with that, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more in depth about the strategy, about the plan. There are goals and there are strategies to get to those goals. That's where all of your thoughts will come in, and that's where I want you to kind of talk amongst yourselves for a while and figure this out. Also get your take on how much of the plan you buy into when we come back after the break. Oh, another beautiful shot from Skyfox 9, downtown St. Paul, the saintly city, and we're discussing around this table today a city in transition. I think it's safe to say an evolution of St. Paul is probably necessary to create a robust future. That is part of what we're talking about today. There are 3 stated goals in a strategy plan that was put together that basically lays out the future of St. Paul in the decades to come, which on the upside is fairly confined. As we said before, it's only 2% of the entire landmass of the city. So it is a very walkable downtown district, which is a benefit when you're trying to put together a plan for the future in terms of getting people here, stay here, spend some time here. The strategy plan lays out 3 goals, and I'll read them for our viewers, and then we'll respond to them. They're fairly lofty, but by the standards of this summary, it seems that they are achievable, at least in most part. Attract 20,000 more residents, which would bring the city of St. Paul to about 30,000. We're talking about that core district. It also wants to create 20,000 jobs. That's a bit more challenging, but in doing so, it helps the other 2 become more viable. And generate a 20% increase in visitors. And the visitor part of it is starting to take care of itself. But let's start with 20,000 more residents. And I'll just throw it out there. Creating 20,000 more residents means, I think, if I read through this plan correctly, that it means converting commercial space to residential. It also means doing it in an affordable way. I mean, I'll take my daughters for example. There are parts of St. Paul that they can't afford to live in. And if you're talking about new construction of existing buildings, that's not cheap, right? So how do you attract 20,000 more residents, build some nice places for them to live, convert some office space? It seems relatively daunting with the cost of that type of construction today. Anybody want to weigh in on how that's feasible?
I sure can. I'll get started, and you have some experience building it. The first question is, you asked how do you recruit those or how do you attract those residents? One of the incredible things that we see, and I think as a big opportunity that's pointed out in this plan is, and you said, how do you get people to want to be downtown? The truth is, I don't think the challenge is how do you get people to want to be downtown. I think the challenge for us around this table is how do we build a downtown that facilitates people being downtown in the ways that people are showing us that they want to be here. One of the ways people are showing us they want to be here, we already talked about events. We've talked a little bit, we've evoked the riverfront. The Mississippi River sort of sells itself. One of the ways that people want to be downtown is to live downtown. And so as by contrast to some of the office spaces that we've seen empty, particularly since the onset of the pandemic, we see over 90% occupancy rates in our residential properties downtown. So you're right, it's a challenge to build it. So the challenge is building them. Not so much as getting people to want to live downtown. That's there. We have to be able to provide the infrastructure for it. We're doing that to try to help facilitate that in every way that we can. Right now, we actually have some pretty strong investment signals in terms of some of those buildings being purchased that were abandoned by Madison Equities. In terms of new investors coming into our spaces, we have to work at the city to help facilitate those permitting processes to help make sure those purchases turn into projects, and that's where a lot of the great partners like those around the table come in.
Let me just clarify something for our viewers. You mentioned Madison Equities, and for our viewers who may not know, Madison Equities was the largest commercial and retail owner of properties in St. Paul for years, right? Mm-hmm. And over the last decade, slowly, and in some cases abruptly, picked up and just left. Very little of it was sold. Most of it was just, as you mentioned, they just walked away, right? So it left St. Paul with a lot of square feet of abandoned property.
And their principal owner passed away suddenly,
yes.
which was a significant part of that story. Right. But I think there's folks who would suggest that a lot of those properties have needed additional investment for quite a long time, and so that's where kind of having partners who are willing to invest and push our quality of life and push our quality of infrastructure downtown and amenities downtown is important.
I feel like you want to respond. You as I understand it, there is a path to success in doing that, in converting properties.
There is a path to success in converting properties, and the next 3 to 5 years presents a unique time to take on that success. Across the country, new construction has slowed down dramatically on housing due to high interest rates, and in this period, much like 15 years ago, the ability for the private sector, labor, to lean in with the federal, state, and local governments to drive this type of investment is really an opportune period. How we maximize our existing spaces the next 3 to 5 years is where the opportunity sits. And with some of the tools we have available at the federal level, to go to your commentary on affordability, it allows St. Paul to really deliver housing that can be the full spectrum of affordability, from low-income tax credit to missing middle to the higher end products. We just delivered Landmark Tower next door, which is one of the higher end historic conversions. 400 residents will live there. But on kind of the middle side of that, there's buildings that can really hit the missing middle because of their layouts and other features. And then there's the ability to pair in historic credits with low income credits to deliver low income. But the whole spectrum can be achieved with that federal resource coming in, pairing with state and local.
So essentially, you're saying it can be done for an affordable way.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One
Joe.
unique feature about downtown St. Paul is that for, I don't know, a variety of perhaps odd reasons, or maybe just what felt like bad luck for a long while, the floor plates, the size of the buildings we have in downtown St. Paul are relatively small. So for years we're frustrated when an employer would come to town and say, hey, we're looking for 50,000 feet of office space or 60,000 feet of office space. They'd come in and they'd want to do that with maybe 2 floors, looking for a minimum floor plate size of 30,000 square feet. And most buildings in downtown St. Paul, for whatever reason, are 10 to 12,000 square feet. We brought in architectural firm Gensler to study 20 buildings, and they've done this hundreds and hundreds of times across the US and Canada. They typically find about a third of the buildings might be well suited. Half of our buildings are well suited for conversion. So that is, I think, something we have put some wind in our sails, and especially the Madison Equities portfolio is a little bit outsized in that kind of ideal building.
Can I weigh in on that?
Yes, please do. And then we're going to go to jobs.
Thanks. I just want to point out, I think it's important to note as we talk about bringing residents to downtown, we have more than 10,000 residents who already live downtown. So I think it's important to lean into what makes living downtown so special, not just building the space for people to live, but why are those 10,000 plus people living here? And one of the reasons is you get to live in downtown St. Paul. You get to have all of those amenities right outside your doorstep, all of those events. You don't have to shovel your snow. You don't have to mow your lawn. You get to live without a car. And so I think as we think about what it takes to bring more people downtown, we need to double down on that. So for example, we need people to be able to walk to a grocery store without getting in the car that they abandoned to live downtown. We need people, and some people around this table will disagree with this, but that's why we call it a debate, to be able to walk through the skyways in a climate-controlled environment or in a wheelchair, because that's why they chose to move downtown. So I think those things make downtown living special. We can't just pretend like it's just like any other neighborhood. It's unique, and the more we can make it that kind of unique, the better off we'll be.
Do you have to live downtown to work downtown? In other words, I mean, it seems like the two would go hand in hand. If I'm going to live downtown, I might as well work there. But is somebody going to live downtown and work elsewhere?
I know a lot.
And is that a challenge?
No, I mean, I think a lot of my constituents live downtown and work downtown and tell me that's how they're able to adopt the car-free lifestyle. That's why they chose to move downtown. Young professionals in particular who are working for all of our corporations and can just walk to work and then enjoy happy hour afterwards right outside their home or their place of employment. But then, of course, people can live downtown and work anywhere. I think we welcome all folks to live downtown.
There's something nice about the reverse commute.
Right.
You're going on the right side of traffic both ways.
Chris, I have to believe that for you as a large employer downtown, this notion of development and residential development in particular is music to your ears. I know it is for us.
Absolutely is. We have a number of employees who walk to work. We're really excited about the development opportunities outside of our headquarters. We have 2 towers in downtown St. Paul, and we're in the middle of that stressed area where a lot of the former Madison Equity properties are now vacant or have high vacancy rates. And we're excited about this being this unique opportunity in time to transform our direct neighborhood. And when we have people like those sitting around the table who are demonstrating a commitment, it makes it really exciting for us.
Okay. When we come back, we're going to talk about jobs. The goal is to create 20,000 more jobs in downtown St. Paul. There are ways to do that. There are ideas on how to do that, and I'd like to get some of those ideas from all of you when we come back right after this. with all that the St. Paul, the city has to offer, and its surrounding area as well, it's had a long reputation, and some take exception to this, as being a sleepy town where they roll up the streets around 9 p.m. I never experienced that personally, but some believe that to be true. Anecdotally, in 35 years, I've been coming in and out of this town for various events. It's been great all those years. However, most would say in the last decade or so, it has gotten quieter than normal in St. Paul. We're here talking to a wide-ranging group of people who are very vested in this downtown development, the district, the downtown district in particular, and what its future holds. One of the things that's super important is jobs in downtown St. Paul. So I want to continue our roundtable discussion to talk about jobs. It's one of those things that if you get the jobs, then some of the other things follow. If we're talking about visitors and we're talking about housing, that certainly is a good recipe for making things happen. Somebody, and I think, you know, Chris, you have a vested interest in jobs in downtown St. Paul. You've had a successful run at that. What does it take to get more jobs down here?
You know, we think it's a great place to employ workers. We've got a central district here that's very accessible to people living throughout the metro area. So being in a spot where people can easily get to is important. Right now we have a lot of construction going on downtown, but that's a good thing. The infrastructure improvements that are taking place in downtown right now, while a hassle immediately, are going to be good long term. We have not had a problem bringing our employees back downtown when it's safe. And there has been a perception and some reality around public safety needs. I think they're being addressed. But when we have a safe place, when we have amenities, when we have collaborative, dynamic workspaces and good options for them to dine and have fun after work, it's a terrific place. And I just don't think as many people know what a nice place to work downtown can be. That's not to say that we haven't had some challenges, because over the last 4 or 5 years, there have been some definite challenges. But the tide is shifting on that.
How much of it was people didn't want to come back to work?
I think,
and what preferred working from home, or would come down to work for 2 days a week? I mean, how much of that plays into this?
a big part of it. I mean, our state employees just came back a month ago, and we felt their absence when they were not here. The workplaces or the cafes and coffee shops, they were empty, and it was influenced a lot by our state employees. But they're coming back. Our employees have different attitudes about whether they want to be working from home or in the office. We have a nice blend of both options available to our employees, but fundamentally people see the value in coming together as a big part of how they work with one another.
Richard, what about you? I mean, you employ a lot of people here just to make this place run. Challenges getting people into town?
No, it's not. From an employee perspective, it's not the challenges, because they want to be here. Going back to those large event nights where everything is happening in the city, our workforce between the convention center, the arena, the hotel, and our other restaurants, we can blossom up to 3,000 people working. Day like today, we're probably sitting at, maybe 300, 350. So that's an important part of bringing those people back into the city in terms of working. I think the other aspect of bringing jobs to the city is the retail. We talk a lot about the houses above, but the street level retail has got to come back. We need the tailors. We need a lot of different variety. A great success story is Raw Mit, which is a Thai restaurant right around the corner. They took a shot on the corner that was the old Dunn Brothers Coffee that sat vacant for a long time after the pandemic. They are now expanding into the next space because they have so much business. Our offices are right across the street. Every time I walk across there, it's amazing how busy that is. And that's daytime for lunches, but nighttime for residents. We hear from the residents that, we go to Raw Mit twice a week.
Yeah,
we need more Raw Mits.
I think there's part of that too that plays into the walkability aspect of downtown. If I can see something that I want to go to between the collective point A to point B to point C kind of thing, then I will do that walk. And St. Paul has suffered from the loss of some of those retail sites. What's
interesting is since the pandemic, when we talk about the Mississippi, we're now the host to 3 different cruise lines that either embark or depart from here. And they usually spend 2 nights in our hotel. And the difference is, on average, you're looking at 90 to 100 guests, maybe sometimes up to 150, who want to walk. They don't have a car, they're waiting for their cruise line, and they want to walk around this area and spend money. We don't give them a lot of opportunities to spend money. So unfortunately, what we do is we do bus them to other St. Paul area activities or in the Twin Cities, but they really want to like go out at night and just walk around and buy some retail items and stuff of that sort, where we don't have yet, but I think residents will help boost that, and tourism, it all goes hand in hand.
Does anyone have some thoughts about the quickest way to get more jobs into St. Paul?
What
would that be?
Reinvestment.
Okay, let's talk about that.
So, we all know that, Grand Casino Arena.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm in
Die hard.
Yeah, Grand Casino Arena, is in need of renovation, right? And that's just true of these community assets that we call stadiums and arenas, right? That's just a fact of the matter. So we're 25 years in. The mayor and we are working hard on that, along with a lot of people at this table, as a matter of fact. But where I'm going is, the reinvestment in Grand Casino Arena will make it a better place, an easier place to move around. It'll make sure it's safer, and all the infrastructure and operational things will get fixed and all that. But also, as part of that, as part of our campus that the city owns, we want to renovate Roy Wilkins Auditorium, which was built in the 1930s and has never really been significantly improved. So if we do that, if we end up with a 6,000 seat venue there, which doesn't exist today, a seated venue, that creates 50 to 100 more events every year, which creates a lot more jobs right away. So reinvestment.
We're going to get specific about how much reinvestment, and Mayor, I know you want to weigh in on that because you certainly have a big hand in that. I just got your budget, by the way.
Congratulations. If I can add real quick to
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you think?
this tab,
It's a good
we'd
read.
also like
Well,
another, if we can do another 150,000 square feet in our convention center under Kellogg or something of that sort, and combine with all of that, that adds instant jobs. And what it does, it makes us very competitive from a square footage type with similar cities around that we're competing with business around the United States.
Tom, I want to hear from you because the St. Paul Saints have a long history of being a fun place to go and a fun place to work for people. Where do you see this going? You're sort of set
It's a small
in
business,
lower,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
small business, sort of in the lower town part of the city. A little harder to get to if you're going to walk from the district down to where you are.
But I did it today. It's 10 minutes up. I mean, it really is. And it's a great walk.
It's a great walk.
I mean, I had to go from 5th Street up to 6th to get across Minnesota, but that's...
You know,
We're getting there, man. We're getting there, baby. We're getting there.
kind of a mess.
No, but I think you asked a good question. What are some of the things we can do quickly? A lot of, and it's not just unique to St. Paul, it's the communications, it's telling the story. You can do all the work, but if you're not telling the story, to borrow a hockey analogy, you're not finishing your check. You've got to get out and communicate that, and I think we have fallen behind in that area in telling that story, and that's one of the things we can do, because you see the passion around the table, and there is a lot to work with in this downtown. But we got to tell people, we got to get out there and let them know this is a really great opportunity. I don't know that we do enough of that.
That segues into visitors. Grand Casino Arena has done a good job since the pandemic of getting back to where it was when it was Xcel Energy Center before the pandemic. That is one of the bright spots. There are some projects on the horizon that would tend to bring in more visitors as well that are either underway or will be underway, but will need some investment. Mayor, let's talk about visitors into downtown St. Paul. You have lived here your whole life. You've worked here your whole life, really. What is the key to getting people to come into the city and go, oh wow, this is great? Or what has to happen to make that feeling happen?
Well, the truth is, people who come into the city already do leave kind of going, oh, wow, this is great. It's one of the things that I always say is like, we're kind of a best kept secret type of city. As we talk about all of the different assets that we have around the table, I get frustrated about the number of visitors that I have who come in town and I'm taking them back to the airport and they go, hey, I liked it here. As though the story they heard about it, to your point, told them something other than that they would have a blast here. So I think that's true. And I'd also suggest that probably more so than any time in our city's history, when people are looking to decide, hey, I got this big, huge music festival I want to host, or I got this big, World Juniors Hockey Championship I want to host, or I got this smaller jazz festival I want to host, and I could pick anywhere. More so than ever, folks are choosing our city. We have, I think, the Midwest ailment of when we're excited about something and we think something has a lot of promise and potential, we end up trying to make sure nobody ever knows it. And we have to break that habit, and we have to tell the story. We have to be kind of telling folks. The other piece I'd say about the renovation of Grand Casino Arena, one of the things that excites me most, as much as we need some of the inside things that we're doing, as we look at arenas around the country, one of the best practices is not just to have amazing stuff inside. We have something, I call it a Cinderella building sometimes. It's like when the ball is going, it's all amazing, it's beautiful, and everybody's dressed up and everything is vivid. But when the clock strikes midnight and the ball closes down, it sort of ends up kind of sapping the energy. One of the things we see in arenas around the country right now is instead of that hard shell exterior, you see bars and coffee shops and pubs and spaces and pizza shops and spaces all around there, so it can be vibrant and thriving, kind of whether there's a big event happening in the bowl or not tonight. And so there's a lot of growth strategies, a lot of investment strategies. It's the reason why you had a tough time walking here, because we're building that kind of public infrastructure that we have here. One of the shocking things, I think, for all of us, is how much we find there is to work with as we work on this together.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just want to chime in on the piece about visitors too. I think it's important for us all to remember all the progress we've made too. I think back, 20 years ago, Lower Town, there was the Kelly Depot Bar and there was the Coney Island. Like, all of those restaurants that have come online in the last 15 years or so.
People forget too,
right?
Joe. I mean,
the
18
ballpark,
and 19, Lower Town was rocky.
Yeah,
It
that's right.
On its mark. I mean, it was
what happened?
A growing pandemic, and I think coming out of it, our response to it was such a shock. I think, I think that shock took a while to wear off, and but it is, it's not like we know what it looks like in this town. We do know what the success looks like. It's just,
Well, part of this plan said that, as I interpreted it, said that maybe one of the problems is that people are trying to recreate St. Paul the way it was, right? And I think the consensus was that that's not the solution. You have to look to the future. You have to look at what St. Paul has to become based on what we're dealing with today, post-pandemic, really, in many ways. Are there underutilized areas? Now, we have a list of projects that are underway, Central Station, things like that. Are there underutilized areas of St. Paul that could play into this plan that aren't being looked at? Anybody?
Well, I think Central Station is a critical underutilized area, and there's a huge opportunity there. We have a tentative development agreement right now with Flaherty and Collins to put a 20-story tower there. There's a lot of vision around that site and what could go there, what could span the tracks and be one of the only places in the entire metro where you can get off the train and go to your hotel, go to your apartment, go to your office. And that could totally transform the way that area looks and feels. That could truly be the Central Station. When you go to a major city and you get off at the Central Station, you're getting off at the newsstand, the police substation, the public bathroom, for goodness sakes, the place where you can buy your St. Paul merch, the place where you can buy your merch from the cruise ship, right? So I think that is a huge opportunity. And the other missed opportunity, and I know the mayor and I agree on this, and I think everyone around this table, that public infrastructure is so key, because it's the streets and the sidewalks and the trees and the lights and the benches. Those are the things that both make people want to walk around, consider working here when they come here to spot it out for the first time, and that also make people feel safe. And so if you have public infrastructure and public safety, those are the leave-behinds that, regardless, when the ball ends, for the people who live here and work here all the time and aren't just visiting, those are the things that make the quality of life so great.
Is safety a problem? Who wants to respond to that?
The perception is.
Well, that was my launching pad. Was there is a perception of safety in every city nowadays. St. Paul isn't alone there. Certainly Minneapolis carries the same reputation. There is a perceived issue among greater Minnesota that it is unsafe to travel in downtown St. Paul or downtown Minneapolis or any other downtown of any size at all. How much of that is real in the city of St. Paul? And the reason I bring that is because we are talking about, points of interest where people have to navigate. And if they don't feel safe, or if they see something that makes them feel unsafe, that is a deterrent. Is safety an issue in the city?
I think you hit on it. They see something that doesn't look safe to them. That's the, clean and green is the low-hanging fruit of public safety. If it looks like the store's being minded, then I feel good walking down that street. If it's dirty, if there's graffiti, if there's all, that's what the work that they're doing we are doing with the downtown improvement district is so critical. But it is how, when you come in from Woodbury, you come in from Roseville, and you come into downtown, how does it look? It's almost instantaneous. You can tell with our fans walking up, they feel great on game day. They don't have and we don't have any issues, real issues down there with public safety, with events, and I'm sure Matt would probably say the same thing. There's a lot of good folks around that are doing good things. That element just goes away. So it really is. If we start there, I really think that's for us a key. How's it look?
One thing I think maybe folks don't realize yet, we took a major step forward this year with our downtown improvement district. Our clean and safe work tripled in terms of its size and scope, so it now covers all 4 corners of downtown. Previous years, it was more of a pilot, something we were trying in a part of downtown. We proved that it works. So this year, the budget ballooned really from 1.2 million to 3.5 million. Our crew tripled from 10 or 12 to 30, almost 40 ambassadors out doing that core cleaning work, safety patrols, adding to the network of public safety that we have throughout downtown. And the results, are showing it. And I think, whether it's visually sort of passing the test, the eye test, and also it's showing up in the data as well.
Mayor, is there money in the budget for that kind of thing moving forward?
Oh, absolutely. We're working closely. I mean, before the Downtown Alliance was created, we were the largest city in the country to not have an organization like that, to not have a crew like that, and I think that's been a part of the challenge. So having that up and running is enormous. We, of course, participate very heavily with that where that's concerned. The other piece I'll say is I think one word that's sort of looming over this conversation that we haven't said out loud yet is fentanyl. We are experiencing nationally the largest drug crisis that we've ever experienced. And we are seeing some of that shadowed in our downtown. And we're seeing spaces, and if the police chief was here, he'd tell you from a violent crime perspective, from a shots fired perspective, we're a fundamentally safe community. But those perceptions, I think, resonate because when I go downtown, I may see somebody who doesn't want my wallet. They're not after me or my wallet, but it may make me feel uncomfortable, right? And so, yes, there's money in the budget to help support that work. There's also money in the budget to help to create jobs for people who have experienced unsheltered homelessness. There's money in the budget we just proposed for a $1 million intervention around fentanyl and some of the quality of life issues that we're seeing, I think, centered, probably not exclusively, but mostly like downtown and along University Avenue as well, the St. Paul Way, which includes both kind of the interventions to help make St. Paul a space where you can get clean and get sober, and a space where we make it very clear that you're not welcome here to sell opioids or to sell any other kind of drug. And I think those investments will help boost all of this momentum that we're talking about today too.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we're going to sort of put a wrap on this. We're going to talk about the priorities, and we're going to talk about investment, okay? Because the buy-in to this plan literally means you agree with it or don't agree with it, and there is a literal buy-in that has to take place for this stuff to happen. So when we come back, we're going to discuss that part of this plan. That should get interesting. As we look at St. Paul again from a bird's eye view, I can't help but wonder, and I'm sure people around this table are wondering as well, what will the city look like 10, 20, even 50 years from now? Already seeing Xcel Energy become Grand Casino Arena in recent weeks. Change is inevitable, but it comes at a price. And that is also a big part of what we're talking about today. There's investment that has to happen to make this plan happen, whether it happens in 1, 2, 3, or 50 years from now. It certainly requires investment. Matt, you brought up a good point. There's an investment, and let's just use the Grand Casino Arena as an example to start this conversation about investment. $10 million, that's a lot of money. You've asked for investment from the state. Where are you with that? I mean, your initial request was essentially turned away.
Yeah, it was, as was many other things last session. But we're working very closely with the mayor. It's a city-owned building, the Grand Casino Arena is, and of course the River Center Convention Center and Roy Wilkins Auditorium. They're all in need of some kind of renovation. But we've agreed together with the city that Grand Casino Arena is the priority. We've downsized that project to make it more affordable. That is, we've listened to the feedback we've heard from the legislature, and we've turned it from actually a tear down and complete rebuild of Roy Wilkins to really a focus on the arena. And we've taken it down to a $450 million project with a $50 million request to the state, 200 mostly from the city, 200 from the Wild, and we're ready to go. That is far less on both a percentage basis and a real dollars basis than, let's say, Target Field or US Bank Stadium. But again, I don't begrudge those because these are community assets. We all need to maintain these buildings for the good of our communities and cities. So we will continue to work with the mayor and his staff, who've been great partners in this effort, and we will find a way to get it done because it must be done for the community and the city's sake.
How soon?
As soon as people see the light, and again, I don't see it as an option that it can't be renovated. It has to be renovated. These buildings require that. They have to stay up with the times. They have to for HVAC and cabling and safety and flow through the arena. It has to change over time. And so I believe people will see that light. And Craig Leopold, along with the mayor, we've never thought about moving, trying to figure out where else we could go to get something done. St. Paul is our home. We believe in this city, and we're going to make it happen.
And you got to get Caprile.
There's that issue too. I knew somebody was going to bring that up.
See, Matt,
I mean, I'm just saying.
Can I add something? Just actually want to prompt something with Matt there. You talk about the imperative that this project is, and I couldn't agree more. We're not in that part of downtown, but to me, it's the single most important investment we need to make as a community. But one of the things that amazed me is what you said about that facility and how broadly it's used. Everybody facilitates or associates the Wild games with it, but I was just amazed how broadly that is used for so many different events.
Thanks, Chris. And I should have said this earlier. When I say it's a community asset, we have 41 regular season Wild home games every year. There are 150 to 175 events in our arena every single year, and others inside River Center and Roy Wilkins. So we host naturalization ceremonies, graduations, Hmong New Year. This is not just the Minnesota Wild. Far from it. We actually have a relatively small percentage of the events that occurred at Grand Casino Arena are the Wild. But that's why it's so important. And again, that's why I believe that we will finally get to a great place with this and have a renovated Grand Casino Arena.
The busiest month of the year in downtown St. Paul is March.
That's right.
You think about all those families coming from across the state of Minnesota for the wrestling tournament, for the boys and girls hockey tournaments, for college hockey. And I mean, the Wild are hardly even there in March. Mm-hmm. It is just a phenomenal driver. We also have St. Patrick's Day in March, of course, which is a great day too. But it just really drives a ton of traffic for downtown.
The complex there is probably one of the most important drivers into St. Paul. If you look in just look at the end of December, first we get the World Juniors. All right, we're going to fill all of our hotels because of that facility. Yeah. They're going to look at other places if it's 27, 28, 29, 30 years old. And other cities are building and they're renovating at a much more rapid rate than we are.
How big a element for the chamber is the Grand Casino Arena? I mean, it's the cornerstone. You deal with it all the time.
Sure.
It's the thing.
They're a great partner, absolutely. And I think you had said something earlier about we want to go back to pre-pandemic. I would submit to you that what you're seeing here is is nothing of the sort. It's all about we have to go forward to a new place. And the Grand Casino Arena is just the cornerstone of that mindset and investment opportunity.
Mayor, it's a lot of money. So there's taxes involved here. For the general public who may be watching this, they'll think, oh, geez, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for a St. Paul resident if the investment is made?
Well, and that's the important word you just said is investment. And I think most St. Paul residents know this conversation is existing, and most St. Paul residents know we have to push the envelope downtown. Part of the conversation that we had in my budget address a couple of weeks ago, and part of the conversation I have citywide, as folks say, hey, what's going on with my property tax bill? Last year, we increased property taxes by 6% in St. Paul. The city portion of my property tax bill went up by 20%. And so there's something else happening. The something else there is the fact that, again, as we've seen kind of the Madison Equities portfolio collapse, and as we've seen some of those things happen, we've seen property values dip downtown, which means the percentage of our property tax that we're used to relying on downtown for has dipped. So as I talk to folks about the need to invest downtown, I'm able to make the connection directly to the bills that we're getting in our own homes. Like as we say that slower momentum downtown is one of those critical kind of challenges that's pressing on us. They get why we're saying we need to make big investments downtown to help change that dynamic and help us move into a different space.
In the about 3 minutes we have left, I want to talk about the priorities, okay? And we'll sort of wrap this thing up with what are the greatest priorities. And when I say that, I'm saying that with some time value associated with that. In other words, this can't happen in 20 years. This has to happen relatively quickly by business development standards. What is the top priority moving forward? What should residents of St. Paul expect with those top priorities?
Well, I would say the top priority is to create the vision that people can see and that people can get excited about. We have the downtown investment strategy, but we also need to have the picture of what all of these investments together are going to look like. And then everything isn't going to take 20 years, but it might take time to phase this out and to completely transform downtown. So I think we need to be realistic about this is phase one, this is phase two, and this is how it all comes together. And to your question to the mayor, I just want to push back a bit and say it is not okay for all of this to fall on the back of St. Paul property taxpayers. St. Paul is Minnesota, is the region, is the country, just like
Capital City,
our western neighbor, right? So when investments there have to happen and it's a statewide problem, this is also a statewide opportunity. So it's our state partners, it's our federal partners, it's our labor partners. We need to think a little bit outside of the box and not keep coming back to taxes because there's so many other sources we can use if we have a vision that people can get excited about.
And just piggybacking off the council president's comments, that leverage is so critically important to be able to leverage in the federal and state resources to the benefit of St. Paul is a critical component of this equation. And that's where these conversions, and you look at where we are today, the St. Paul Hotel, and the gap between here and then where the St. Paul Saints are, and the two stadiums have spurred on a large majority of the housing growth the last 15 years in the city of St. Paul. So I do speak very highly about those investments. They're huge. But the gap in between is the opportunity. St. Paul has a unique set of buildings. We talked about them earlier, about 50% that are eligible for these tools of leverage, federal, state, local, private, that can bring in tremendous job investments. These are job-driven projects. 2/3 the cost goes to labor. We can really create a downtown neighborhood in this city, but it takes collective effort, really good housing policy, and driving a lot of leverage from the federal and state and private.
Can I add just one other thing on it?
If you're brief, Chris, because we are up against
Right
a hard
there.
out.
We're talking about a lot of potential projects down in the road, but there's a lot of stuff happening right now, a lot of public infrastructure. We're having a $60 million campus improvement that we're investing right now in downtown St. Paul and our two towers. And Ecolab is making investments. It's happening all over the place. So this isn't just a pipe dream about the future that might happen. It's actually happening now.
We're going to end right there. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. I hope people at home got something from this, and good luck. We all hope St. Paul grows.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Well said. Got it.
Very nicely done.